So, hello, welcome to the 11th episode of STOKR Insight. As you can see, today we are not only two people, we are three. We have also Jonas in our middle. Jonas is a new joiner at STOKR, and he is specifically invited today because he has dived into a product we have developed together with Blockstream, and that's the Blockstream Mining Note.
Great. Thank you, Tobias, for the introduction. Maybe one word about myself before we dive into the analysis. I'm Jonas. I joined STOKR early this year or late last year, and I'm the new venture manager at STOKR. And today, I'm excited to share some insights with Arnab and Tobias about the Blockstream Mining Note. And I think I can give it over to Arnab to dive into a bit of the hash rate development over the last years.
Thanks, Jonas, and thanks, Tobias, also. Yeah, it's an interesting product, right, which we launched in 2021, and it's getting mature in 2024. But before we go into the details of what BMN is, let's maybe quickly dive into what a hash rate is, right, and why it's interesting to look into the hash rate market when you talk about Bitcoin. In simple sense, hash rate is the capacity or I would say, the network's difficulty. So if you say, like, when you mine Bitcoin, the mining depends on what is the network's difficulty to mine at that moment. And the difficulties actually depends on what is the hash rate, the global hash rate. Over the period of time in the Bitcoin history, every halving cycle, that is every 4 years when new halving comes in, we have seen significant growth of the hash rate. And this is because of new ASICs equipment coming in, professional miners and now institutional miners are coming in, and the growth of the entire segment of mining, how it looks like. For example, if you see in this chart, it's a very interesting point. In August 2020, around that moment, when the first, when the last halving happened, the hash rate has significantly increased, and which we can see kind of constant growth from around 100 million exahash to around 500 million exahash at the moment, where the current hash rate, the global hash rate is there is significant growth. But on the other side, where you can see there's a very significant dip. So when this BMN flag is mentioned here, you can see there's a significant dip. And this is the historically, I think everybody can remember, there was a Chinese mining ban. That is, a lot of Chinese miners left the market. So what happened, the hash rate was going up, but suddenly because of the miners were plugging out because of Chinese mining ban, a lot of miners left and the hash rate decreased. So the global hash rate decreased, which is very interesting to signify that at that moment, mining becomes profitable. And that's actually another thesis of this BMN when it was started in that regard, is sometimes mining is more profitable than buying and holding Bitcoin, and sometimes it's the reverse. Now, when you invest in a hash rate or a hash rate instrument, the key aspect is you invest in a certain duration, and during that duration, the cyclical moment of the hash rate helps you to make an interesting return out of this hash rate product. So that's the core context of what hash rate is and how we are seeing the growth. And this is kind of interesting to see what happens after the next halving, which we're expecting in few days in 2024, how the hash rate looks like. So now a lot of people think that this growth of the hash rate, maybe not sustainable for a long time, but we can discuss in details because it's an interesting to just quickly observe before I jump. I think Tobias want to say something. Is you see that though the Bitcoin price is going down, the hash rate went up, and that's an interesting element.
So, what is your take on what will happen now at the halving? So, because like the blue line is the hash rate, as you have explained, right? And the hash rate is as high as has never been so far. So, what do you think will happen actually now in the halving?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think a lot of people are actually speculating on that answer. At this moment, people are expecting that the hash rate will dip a bit because some miners may leave the market because after the halving, technically the revenue is reduced by half. Though you can consider that Bitcoin price will cross 100K or 150K, so the revenue should not be that much affected. But theoretically, the revenue is slashed by half based on the number of BTCs that is being mined. Maybe repeat the question. Maybe if you want.
Yeah, no, I think thank you, Arnab, for the explanation. I think Jonas, you have also prepared some other slides. I think unless you want to explain anything further here on the hash rate, which is like one of like the crucial determiner of the Blockstream Mining Note, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Before we dive into the analysis of the performance and some key metrics of the Blockstream Mining Note, I think it's also interesting to take a look of what Blockstream developed to really bring some transparency in for investors.
So what are you showing right now? Is like the cumulative BTCs mined, or yeah?
Exactly. So this is a dashboard that Blockstream developed, and this is updated daily. So daily, they plug in the number of what Bitcoin was mined on the day. So yesterday, March 11, we see that they added another data point, and we see the cumulative Bitcoin mined per BMN. And also here, this I think it's the most important figure for investors in the BMN to see, okay, how much Bitcoin was actually mined per BMN. And people also get a heads up on the term length. So right now we're at day 980 of about 1,100 days. So we're moving fastest to the maturity. Arnab, maybe you will take it from here.
And here we have the total number of Bitcoin mined for all the product, right? Up to today.
Exactly. So up to today, the BMN mined 1,201 Bitcoin. This is a gross number, so all BMN together actively mined this significant number of Bitcoin, which will then be issued to the investors at maturity.
I think it's also an interesting moment to discuss a little bit on what BMN is, because it's an interesting instrument in the market. I don't remember any other instrument, something very close to that out there at this stage. BMN is hash rate backed securities. So that means when somebody purchases one BMN, they are purchasing one like a fixed hash rate. In this specific sense, it's 2000 terahash. So investor purchased 2000 terahash for a period of 3 years. What it gives investors, that investor bought a fixed hash rate, and connected to what I just explained before. So when you purchase a fixed hash rate and the global hash rate is volatile in that way, you actually can determine how much you can mine the Bitcoin based on what is the global hash rate. And that's what happened. So investors, when they purchase, some investors bought with Bitcoin, some investors bought with dollar, and they purchased this fixed hash rate. And with that X amount of Bitcoin, and in this specific sense is 1,201, as Jonas mentioned, has been mined under BMN.
So it's a very impressive number, I would say, right?
It's an interesting number, and this is one more interesting thing to say here is the BMN is paying out in BTC, not in dollar. So as we can see, the Bitcoin price is going up. So technically, you can say also the dollar is devaluating itself. So yeah, if the Bitcoin is 100 million, like 100K plus at the moment, this will be well above 100 million plus product. So that's kind of interesting aspect of this product is you take the Bitcoin and you accumulate the Bitcoin and let the Bitcoin play on the dollar terms, and then you have a very interesting return.
Exactly. And as you said, we're closely approaching the $100 million mark. And I think this slide does a really good job in illustrating the performance of the BMN at maturity. So this is a projected number, what the BMN will be worth at maturity when we consider, in my mind, bearish estimate of $80,000 per Bitcoin in July. But I think this is a side discussion we can have if we think 80,000 is conservative or rather high, if we stand right now at a price of around $70,000 per Bitcoin. So yeah, what we see is that the net value for all BMN would be around 97 million net value, because we deduct the costs of BMN, which are roughly about 20 Bitcoin at the moment, and also projected for some costs until maturity. If we then subtract the invested capital, so what investors put on the table when investing, we see that the net return is actually significantly with around $54 million US, or being equivalent to about 122% of return. So quite some gains for the investors in BMN.
And I think you have like the same also for Bitcoin, return on Bitcoin, right?
Yes, exactly. Because I think this is the really interesting part about this product. It's that it's not just tracking just the performance of an asset, like for example the Bitcoin price, but it's really productive. So what we see here is that the BMN will produce around 303 additional Bitcoin over the entire maturity, which is really considerable for the investors. Again, this chart is similarly structured. There will be a payout of around 1,221 Bitcoin at maturity. This is also projected numbers. And if we consider the Bitcoin equivalent being invested into this product, we see that we come to this figure of $303 million net production of BMN.
303, right? Yeah.
303
Bitcoin have been additionally produced. All right.
Exactly, and I think this is nowhere else to be found in a financial product, that it's really producing Bitcoin for the investors.
I think it's a very interesting also point to highlight here. When we launched this product with Blockstream, and one of the key contention of this product was you accumulate more BTCs. So you put X amount of BTC, and idea is, can you accumulate more BTC by participating in mining? And that was our hypothesis, that yes, you can. This hypothesis is now turning to be a reality with actual net returns in BTC. So that's definitely the thesis is actually answering in the right direction. So the reality is kind of matching the thesis that we had at that point of time in 2021.
Yeah, I think so. It was nobody has done it so far yet, right? So like to really securitize it, tokenize a specific hash rate. And I think it's very interesting that this thesis has worked out, and it's a very beautiful investment product, right? Because you can create like additional BTC, so it's superior, I think, like than just buying Bitcoin. But I think also, like Jonas, you have a slide on that one, right?
Exactly. So following in the following slides, we will directly compare the return of BMN with Bitcoin return, but we will do it on tranche level, because it's super important for us to be granular when talking about the return of BMN, because as we see, the price per BMN differed between the tranches. So tranches were offered from mid of 2021, and the last tranche was offered in February 2022. And we see that the tranche prices increased over time because, of course, if you're buying at a later point, you have less time in the market where your BMN is actually mining. So this is the natural progression that node prices increase. What's also important to see, if we consider the Bitcoin return for investors, is to see the Bitcoin denominated price per node. For example, here in tranche 1, we see that the tranche costs, or the BMN per tranche costs 200,000 euros, and the Bitcoin denominated price was roughly around 5 BTC per node, a bit below. What we see on the other hand side is that, for example, in tranche 2, the Bitcoin denominated price was much higher. And also for tranche 8, the Bitcoin denominated price is much higher. So this is super important when we consider the return for investors, because in the end, it's a granular thing we have to look at.
Yeah, I think given the fact that there is 7.6 plus BTC at the moment is mined, a little bit more will be added in the next couple of months. That return, if you see from tranche 1 to 7, almost every series has made the BTC return that way. The tranche 8 may be one question. Okay, what happened in tranche 8? There is some discussions, and I think Jonas will go to the next part of discussion. But here, one thing to observe is almost majority of the investment came in USD, not in Bitcoin, because this is also what we explained. Some investors came with Bitcoin, some investors came with Tether and USD and Euro, like fiat denominated currencies in that way. And in tranche 8, majority came with fiat denominated currency. So it's roughly, let's say 96% almost came with fiat, and the rest came in Bitcoin. So technically the USD return for those investors are significant. Only the BTC return is not that impressive in that in the specific tranche 8.
Yes, exactly, Arnab. That's a really good point you made, because it's important to really see what is the benchmark for the investors. And if we see that this table here below the chart, we can really easily determine this by looking at the ratio of the investments in Bitcoin, or on the other hand side, then the fiat investments. And as you said, for tranche 8, only 4% of investments made with Bitcoin. So the benchmark is not really Bitcoin. The benchmark is the US dollar or a treasury or something similar. But let's quickly take a look at the performance per tranche across the different tranches. So we see that in blue, we have the return per BMN. So 150% for tranche 1 and tranche 2. And going down the other tranches, later tranches, as we said, because the price is increased per tranche, because the tranches or the BMN of those tranches had less time in the market. If we compare it to Bitcoin return, so for the Bitcoin return, we consider the average Bitcoin price at which the tranche was sold. We see that most of the tranches really significantly outperform the Bitcoin return, which is obvious because we're producing Bitcoin. So it's correlated to Bitcoin, of course, because Bitcoin is the product of the mining. But as we're adding additional Bitcoin per node, we outperform the Bitcoin return. And this is just variable. And if the Bitcoin price increases, this still will hold, because in the end we have more Bitcoin per node, as I just said.
Yeah. So basically, out of 8 tranches have outperformed, 7 have outperformed, right? So significantly.
Yes, correct.
Bitcoin. All right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting also, Tobias, right? Because I don't know so many instruments that can provide 50% annualized return, right? And for example, the tranche 1, tranche 2, where the investors took a significant risk to come early. And just to, for the audience to be clear here, the return is in duration of 3 years. So if it's 150% annual, like a total period for 3 years, is 50% annualized. So that's a significant return. So I'm talking about the first tranche and second tranche specifically, and you see that the earlier you come in, you have a more return, and that makes sense because you're mining more. And as you remember, this Chinese mining exodus happened, the hash rate went down, so the mining machines was producing, like the ASICs were making more Bitcoin, and that definitely added to the value for tranche 1, tranche 2, a little bit also for the tranche 3 in that way, right? So that's a very, very interesting asset class, Tobias. Like, this is whenever people talk about asset tokenization, and this is, after 6 years in the market, one of the key learning for me is asset tokenization matters when there is a new asset class, and the asset class that can provide a very interesting investment thesis, which you cannot easily buy in the traditional market, right? And BMN is kind of the benchmark instrument for that, right? It's a novel asset. You are kind of purchasing a hash rate, which is kind of power purchase agreement kind of model from the energy industry. You're purchasing hash rate. You do not take any exposure to any other business risks. You only take the exposure of the mining infrastructure risks, and you get paid in Bitcoin. And on top, you can actually hold in tokenized format in your blockchain wallet. You can do P2P trade if you want to trade during this period of 3 years. And we saw quite a lot of P2P movements happen during this period. This instrument, I don't think there is any other benchmark instrument for the entire asset tokenization space than BMN at this moment.
Yeah, and I think there was something like, Jonas, you have also compared like the BMN performance with other assets or something like that, right? As far as I remember. Yeah, here's a slide. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it makes sense to see how we perform, or how the BMN performs against other asset classes. We just looked against the Bitcoin performance on the last slide on a really granular level per tranche, because this is just important for investors. because as we saw, the performance differed between the tranches. But if we look at the average return per BMN, it's also interesting to see that we just significantly outperform traditional investment vehicles like the S&P 500 or gold. And I think what's also super interesting is people would probably consider Bitcoin miners as a close substitute for BMN. But if we look at the performance of the Bitcoin miners, of the publicly listed Bitcoin miners, we see that they actually perform really poor, at least in this time span from the 21st of February 22 until today.
Yeah, and I think there you see also it's like a total different investment, right? Because like this is like the return of the public listed stocks, right, of the Bitcoin miners. So that's like the only possibility to invest in. So you don't have like a direct exposure to the mining activities, right? As you have like here in our pure product with the Blockstream Mining Note, right, where you are somehow linked with the hash rate to the mining activity itself. While here you can only invest into public miners, and then obviously there's also like operational costs and the like, and and then the market sentiment, which plays a role, but it's a very significant difference, right?
Totally, 100%. So the thesis is a different thesis. For BMN, investors get Bitcoin returns, they get paid out in Bitcoin, and they just not have a publicly listed stock in their brokerage account. So this is really a different product in that sense. But yeah, in the general market perception, people might think that it's closely correlated or similar.
Yeah, that's very interesting, I think. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think back in the days when we were talking to the investors in 2021, a lot of investors were actually comparing BMN with the cloud mining, with players like that time Compass Mining, as well as, why not they just invest into public mining stocks? Because just to give a quick context here, you can, for the Bitcoiners, technically they can buy Bitcoin. That's the most easiest way. And we recommend going from that route. So once you have kind of collected or accumulated significant amount of Bitcoin, this product becomes interesting for you. So it's kind of the second layer thesis on that point in the Bitcoin narrative. Now, what are the options? How you can participate into the Bitcoin mining? If you are holding Bitcoin, what are the second ways? Earlier, people used to mine Bitcoin in their own basements or something, which is not the case anymore. So you cannot mine. So what you can do is you can buy public listed Bitcoin miner stocks, or you can invest with some cloud mining infrastructures where you purchase some ASICs and you pay for some hashrate contract, and you manage your own equipments. You have to be nerd technically. So you manage your energy price, you manage your equipment's uptime, you manage all these things. And if something goes wrong, then you need to have a technical capacity also to guide the facility management team in the real level. But it's not feasible for a lot of players, right? It's very complex, very technical, and you require a lot of skill set. So technically, the only way in that for those investors to participate in Bitcoin mining becomes like BMN kind of products, where you purchase a fixed hash rate and you rely on a player like Blockstream, who has a significant expertise of running mining infrastructure for a large period of time. And they became the facility manager. They are responsible for servicing the equipment. They are responsible for the uptime and downtime and all these things. And you purchase the hash rate. So you technically give all your responsibilities to this hash rate management company or the facility management company, and you get the Bitcoin that is mined. That's the beautiful element of this BMN, to make it simplified and accessible mining infrastructure for every investors. And Tobias, if you want to mine, I don't know whether you can mine in Luxembourg actually.
Electricity costs are rising also here in Luxembourg.
So thanks, Jonas, for giving this comparison. And I think it's very important to understand over here that BMN provided a good opportunity for a lot of investors to participate in the mining, because in the current moment, mining is restricted for a few players. And not only they participated, not only they secured the network or they secured the hash rate in that way, but they also mined over 1,201 Bitcoin. That's a number in the current market, I think a lot of people will be, curious to know how it happened. And this is not the number that is mined until maturity. We still have a few more days. You can see that light blue area zone. So the mining is still happening, and the Blockstream's equipments are still up and running and mining. So we may have more Bitcoin that will be added.
So it's a great number, right? 1,200, more than 1,200 will be claimable actually from the Blockstream Mining Note, right, Arnab? So it's a really nice number, I would say, in this market.
Yeah. I am not sure about any other instrument that is paying to the investors such a huge proportion of Bitcoin, because most of the ETFs, Tobias, and Jonas on that, they actually keep the Bitcoin with themselves in the custody. They do not pay out to the investors, right? This instrument pays it out. And on top, maybe one more thing, which is very interesting from the Blockstream side, and I think they took transparency to the next level, is they created a dashboard, which Jonas mentioned, which shows on a real-time basis every day when the Bitcoin is mined. And what we did on a Monday morning at 9 a.m., we accumulate all the Bitcoin mined information for the last 7 days, and we send it out. So imagine Monday morning, you're opening your laptop and you are a BMN investor. You get at 9 a.m. exactly how many Bitcoins have been mined for the last 7 days for you. And that was possible because of the transparency dashboard that Blockstream created. And we are quite proud to support such an instrument with Blockstream and facilitating all the investors. So next month will be very interesting because July is a maturity date coming. And there may be some other interesting news also we'll share, which may be of great interest for a lot of other players who have not participated in BMN at the moment.
All right. So thank you very much also for watching, and we will also put in the comments section below, we will put also like additional information about the Blockstream Mining Note and where you can obtain all the information. Any questions you have, please put it also in the comment section, and stay tuned. We will further dive into these very interesting Bitcoin-related products in the next episodes as well. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.